Hi, and welcome to this Euranet Plus debate presented within the Citizens Corner concept. The debate is produced and hosted by Euranet Plus and Radio 24 Italy. Today we discuss European innovation, research and patents. The debate can be followed live from the European Parliament on our Euranet Plus Inside website, on our Facebook profile as well as on Twitter. Users can comment, share, react and interact. Joining us to discuss European innovation is Christian Engström, a Swedish MEP with the Greens, Paul Rubig, an Austrian MEP with the European People's Party, Oswald Schroeder, Principal Director of Communications and Spokesperson for the European Patent Office, and Massimo Godina, Head of the Press and Communications Unit at the European Research Council and Executive Agency. Welcome. We're also joined by guests from our campus radio network, Pavel Malinowski, from Academic Radio Campus, Gauthier Dupras from Radio Campus Paris, and Nikola Puharic from Radio Student Zagreb. Welcome to all of you. So, Christian, let me start with you. Patents, European patents, are you a fan?
No, I'm not a fan of them at all. The only positive thing about the patent package that we adopted recently is that it's almost certainly illegal, so I'm hoping that the ECJ, the European Court of Justice, will strike it down, because what it does is to delegate EU powers to an institution that is not an EU institution. It's not under EU control. And indeed, that is the big problem with the European Patent Office. That's the reason why I accidentally slipped into politics in 2004. Because at that time, and still, the European Patent Office is granting software patents. Now, the law says that they are explicitly illegal. But the European Patent Office, I mean, they make money from it, so they grant it anyway. That is a major problem, and I'm hoping that the ECJ will kill this really disastrous patent bill.
Oswald, Christian's not a big fan. What does the European Patent Office do for our benefit?
The European Patent Office has been founded by European states. It is an organization which is supported by 38 democratic European states. They have delegated to the European Patent Office the task to examine and to grant patents on the basis of the European Patent Convention. And I have to contradict, we don't grant any patent on software per se. Of course, there are gray zones everywhere, but it's a fact that more and more economies around the world decide to establish their own patent system, if they don't have any, or to establish a patent system which quite often, take the case of China, is built on the same philosophy which is the European one. So the economy, the customers, the politicians all around the globe tend to agree that patents are something good for innovation.
Okay. Paul, you're involved in Horizon 2020 in some depth. What's the whole purpose of Horizon 2020?
The key issue is that we want to have high qualified jobs in Europe which get a good wage. And that we only get through research, through innovation. And the Horizon 2020 is a 77 billion package where we very targeted go to different areas and try to get leadership on the world markets. And of course, to protect this leadership, we need intellectual property. So without patents or without intellectual property protection, we would have no chance to get new jobs in Europe, and highly qualified job with nice to be on the payroll.
Okay, Massimo, you guys got about 17% of the total budget from Horizon 2020. How does the European Research Council distribute this money? How is it dispersed?
We have annual competitions open to researchers from any country in the world to come to Europe or to stay in Europe to run a research project for 5 years. Very substantial grants, 1.5 million euros for a young researcher, and the so-called starting grant, 2.5 for an advanced grant, senior researchers. And we have these annual competitions where individual researchers apply via an individual host institution, which can be a public or private research center or university. And there is a panel of scientists selected by scientists already that judge and select the proposals and select approximately 10 to 12% of the applications. So it's a very selective program. And those that win the competition can start these 5-year projects.
Pavel has a question, I think, about the selection process.
Yes, I've got one question, because my brother is a young scientist. He's a chemist, but we're from Poland. The chances from so-called old member states, scientists from old member states are better than from, for example, Poland. How to change it? How to change it? How to make young scientists from Eastern Europe easier to apply for researchers? Because a lot of people have to go on the West to finish their research.
Okay. Massimo, you want to respond first?
We see a certain trend. We see some statistics that go along this kind of consideration. Some of the Eastern countries, the recent member states, they do not have many grants compared to other countries. At the same time, we see that there is a certain correlation, and there are some statistics around between the investment, the public investment in research, and performance of a country in ERC competitions. The countries investing a lot, they receive a lot of grants. They look more competitive. At the same time, the selection criteria are very easy for everybody. The procedure that you mentioned is very easy already for someone coming from Germany or from UK or from Poland. It's a very simple application form with CV, 5 pages of synopsis, 15 pages of full proposals. And the scientists, 12 or 15 scientists, will judge the proposal of your brother or any other applicant, and they will judge 50% the proposal on the basis of the content, the scientific content of the proposal, and the other 50% on the basis of the profile of the applicant. They judge all this, they compare all the applicants in each scientific domain, in each scientific panel, and they rank them, and the best are selected and get granted. At the same time, there are other forms of EU financing. We can talk about structural funds. We can talk about other parts of Horizon 2020 that can help.
Let's bring it to Paul.
Infrastructure.
Do you think it's fair to say that there's an East-West divide within Europe in terms of funding for research?
Yes, it's naturally the case. It's also north-south. So our target is to engage more people, and I think
but
that's
why
a
do you
real.
see there's why do you think this divide, north and south, east west, actually exists, though?
I think for the eastern countries, it's quite complicated and much too bureaucratic. The European Research Council is much better than we did in the 6th framework program. And of course, in Parliament, we put heavy pressure onto the Commission to make it easier to get away from red tape, get away from bureaucracy. On the other side, we have to control and to check if the money which comes from the citizens has really a return on investment, and people want to see that return on investment is granted.
Okay, Christian, do you think the division of funds is fair at the moment?
I wouldn't necessarily have an opinion on that. I think this is a topic where I think we all agree. I mean, we all want innovation. We all see it as tremendously important for Europe, and of course, we want good scientists in every member state to have equal access to the money. So this is probably the uncontroversial part of this.
Okay, Oswald, in terms of patents and the allocation by country, how does the split work? Is there still such an obvious divide between East and West in this as well?
I think it's more complex than East-West. If you look at the biggest applicants in Europe, it's definitely Germany, who has the biggest part. Almost 40% of all patent applications coming from EU come from Germany. Then you have the Nordic countries, the Scandinavian countries doing very well. You have Austria, you have the Netherlands, you have France.
And Luxembourg, surprisingly, as well.
The Benelux. And then, of course, you have a couple of countries, because we also have Switzerland as one of our member states. We have Liechtenstein, and we will have in the future. And they have, of course, the highest number of patent applications. If you look, though, to the new member states, one can observe that there is a strong development, but it is again different from country to country. So this year, for instance, we have a strong increase, for instance, in Czech Republic. We have a strong increase also in Bulgaria and in other economies, as we have a strong increase, for instance, in Portugal, which has also quite low patent culture so far. So I think the difference is much more due to the fact that historically speaking, there is a strongly established and quite old patent culture in some of those countries.
Okay. We have a question on the line here from Marta. Marta says, how are patents going to be protected with regard to 3D impressions? If you can mold something at home, how are you going to control and protect copyright then? Oswald.
I mean, copyright and patents as well. Copyright is not an issue which is dealt with by the European Patent Office. We handle only patents. Patents are granted according to very strict and, I think, very well thought through rules in Europe. The European Patent Convention is probably the best piece in terms of legislation when it comes to patenting. We have huge differences between the US and Europe there, and therefore we have a much lower number of patent applications in Europe, and we have some phenomena which you don't see in Europe, which you might observe in the US, for instance, patent trolls. We don't have patent trolls here, and we don't want to have patent trolls. So quality is really what we look after. If I do something at home, I'm free to do what I do at home. And patents have clear limits. So as long as you do not commercialize what you produce, you are free to produce it.
Okay, the Horizon 2020 looks pretty much like a huge venture capital fund. We're betting on the best and seeing what the outcome is going to be. Is this how parliamentarians view it, Paul?
You know, we concentrated on SMEs, on small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. We concentrate on self-employed because for them the patent and the intellectual property is very important to fight against the big international companies, because big international want immediately to take over the good ideas, the innovation which comes up. And so also the European system is very good because you don't have to go to the court as soon as possible in United States. In United States, you are immediately at the court, and as self-employed or SME, you can't afford the costs of going to the court system. So our system protects the small.
Okay. You're a small businessman, Christian. What's your response to that?
I'm very sorry to say, but I disagree completely. A patent is only worth as much as you're prepared to defend it within litigation. So patent is strictly for the big guys. I mean, a small or medium-sized company, they can take out a patent. Yeah, sure. I mean, the patent attorney will be more than willing to take their money. But once they have their patent, it is completely useless because they do not have the money to defend it. We're seeing this all over again. It doesn't matter. The content of a patent simply doesn't matter. The only thing that matters in patent litigation is how deep are your pockets. And I mean, after all, let's consider what is a patent. A patent is a ban for all European patent is a ban for all European all European companies to use a specific technology. Now, why is it good for innovation to ban the use of new technology? Why is it good for competition to establish monopolies? These are questions that the patent proponents, I mean, the burden of proof must be on them. I'm just saying that I like innovation and I like competition. I believe the free market is a very good thing. And I believe that scientific progress is made by standing on the shoulders of giants. Okay. Patents go completely against this. So please explain to me why that is useful.
Well, let's talk about in terms of the overall innovation framework. We have the Global Innovation Index, and Europe has its own scoreboard as well, which is achieving much more success now too. But the question of what makes a good country to invest in, it's got to have a stable democracy. It's got to have a certain level of education. And one thing which strikes me a lot is the linkage between different organizations, different institutions, internally and externally. So let me ask Oswald, in terms of the application you receive for patents, is there a framework of applicant, a type of applicant, a profile, which you think is best suited to focus on for the future?
Patents are present in almost every technology. So you can look at all the technologies and you will see that those technologies, which are also the lead technologies in the European political approach, are the technologies where you see that inventions are very present. So medical technology is one of them, transportation, environment, that's where you find the patents. But patent applicants or patent applications come for more than 1/3 from small companies, from universities, from individuals, which clearly demonstrates that they see an advantage in going for protection of their inventions. And one has to know that nowadays science, development of new products is a very, very expensive business. And if those companies would not be put in a position which enables them to recover part or the entirety of the investment which they had to make upfront, they would not be in a position to make these investments.
Okay.
That's why patents are there.
Massimo, in terms of those that are successful with applications for grants in the Research Council, what do you look for in their overall environment? Is there a measurement against the overall environment in which they operate, or are you simply looking at the project?
We simply, the panelists simply look at the projects and the profile of the applicant. The research environment was one of the criteria at the beginning of the ERC. Then it was removed because a candidate and the proposal should not be influenced and should not be dependent on the research environment, because in that case the divide would grow and would be bigger than in the other case. So the selection panels are strictly focusing on these two criteria, on the excellence of the proposal and of the candidate. And on this basis, we see that there is this success rate that we mentioned, around 10%, depending on the year. There's a growing number of applications. It's a dramatic increase since 3 years.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's changed so much?
Well, certainly there is a popularity of the program that did not exist a few years ago. It's a very young organization. It's a very young program. So it's becoming very popular. Someone can say that the lack of national funding can also address or push some researchers to go to Brussels and to apply to ERC.
So do you think the crisis has actually driven a more integrated European approach to research?
Well, there is certainly a European competition, and you see more and more this competition even between universities and between research centers. They tend to attract the best at the moment of the application or even after the application, because the researcher, once he gets the funds, can move in Europe with a grant, because the grant is portable.
Gauthier, you have a question?
Yes, Germany is the European leader in filing patents for industrial history reasons, and the rest of the EU is far behind compared to this country. So my question is, how can we fill the gap between Germany and the rest of the EU members in research and innovation?
Okay, Paul.
Yes, if you look to the success stories of Germany, that they still have more than 20% of industry from the GDP, and that also Austria is very close to this figure. Commissioner Tajani now wanted to put up countries like Greece, which only have 11%. And, you know, if you have no industry, if you have no production, the supply chains, the SMEs, the self-employed have no chance to get to a good business. So the truth is that through research, innovation, through intellectual property, we really can gain more and better jobs. And so the reindustrialization from 15.5% of the GDP to 20% in 2020 is a real big issue, because we can create millions of new good paid jobs. And therefore innovation policy plays a key role next to building infrastructure, next to education and to vocational training. So we have a lot of issues where we can really push Europe to get rid of unemployment.
Okay, Christian, how do the other countries catch up with Germany?
Well, that's not for me to say, really. That's for them to say, because I mean that obviously. But yes, on this point, I certainly agree with Paul. It's very important. It's having the industrial base that breeds innovation, because innovation. I mean, lots of people have this romantic view of the inventor sitting in an attic, coming up with something brilliant on his own or her own. It simply doesn't work that way. Patents and innovation in general, whether it's patented or not, comes in small steps, and it's done in the course of product development, because it's important to remember that big companies don't develop new technology in order to get patents. They do it in order to get better products faster to the market and make money from it. So, I mean, if you don't have an industrial base, it's very unlikely that you're going to be very good at research. That is a simple statement of fact.
It seems almost it's impossible for those countries who don't currently have a strong industrial base to reach a higher level. Is that right?
No, I didn't say impossible. On the contrary, I mean, countries, the relative strength go up and down over time, so it's most certainly not impossible. But it is important to remember that innovation doesn't come from loonies sitting in attics. It's from engineers working in big companies, working every day on refining products.
I was in Italy last week, Massimo, in Bologna, and we spoke with some people there about how their country can recover, and they were pretty pessimistic about the state of government, but they were enthusiastic about the creativity of Italy. Is this something that the European creativity is under a rock at the moment? Do we have to lift this rock off?
Well, certainly Italians and Europeans in general are very creative. We have excellent researchers, excellent European researchers based in Europe or based outside Europe. The point is to try to make sure that they stay in Europe rather than leave it. And creativity is certainly one of the assets, but we have great engineers, we have great scientists in any field, basically. And Europe is very strong in basic research. When we see the number of the most cited publications, Europe is certainly in the world among the superpowers. But then when we go to the innovation chain, the situation is changing, and this is why the European Union has launched this Horizon 2020 program. It's also to strengthen this chain and this link between basic research, industrial development, etc.
Also, the monetization of patents, how do you make cash out of it?
Innovation is a very difficult thing. We have already heard it. And I think that Europe is indeed very strong when it comes to creativity. Where Europe has its weaknesses is when it comes to raise venture capital, to go from prototyping to industrial production, to bring a product to the market. And that's where I think we really have to invest.
Execution.
It's the execution, and it's the interfaces between the different stages which you need from a good idea to the market. Because I fully agree with you, Christian, at the end of the day, the business is about bringing a product to the market. And if the market refuses the product, you can have 1,000 patents on it. It is worth nothing. So you have said in a previous intervention that patenting is about creating monopolies. It's only part of the truth. The truth is that you are in a position to share your knowledge with others. And what we see again in Europe is that compared to the US or to other markets, we are not that good at licensing out technologies to partners, to competitors. But this is increasing also in Europe. So there is a possibility for especially small companies, and we have some in the European Inventor Award, where you can clearly see that they are not in a position to bring a product to the market because they simply do not have the market, but they have the creative capacity to develop that product. So if they team up with those who have the access to the market, who have the money to develop this business, in this cooperation, in this network of different skills and capabilities, we have a good chance then to catch up with other nations, and we have seen it in the recent innovation report or a survey that Europe is catching up with the US or Japan for
Paul.
Yes, you know, in my young days, I wrote my thesis at the university about international patent and license policy, and I was the first one who did it out of business administration to see how can we create new jobs with making the right strategy. And of course, you can have an active or a passive patent policy, so that you go actively to the market and claim your patents, or passively that you buy patents in. And on the other hand, of course, the same with the license strategy. You can try to earn money in giving your license away, or that you buy licenses around the world, and all the big international, of course, have their own departments which are acting in buying or selling licenses. And if you look to the telecom market, mobile phone never would work if they don't buy and sell their patents across the whole world. So it's a real success story that if you invest into a new product and invent something, that you have a return on investment. If you have no return on investment, your idea is away and another one will make the benefit. It's very important that the one who keeps the big research areas, that they at least are able to get their money back. And that's important for the people who are working that, because otherwise you can pay their wage. And researchers should have a very good wage. We want to have them on a very high level of income. We have to be attractive in Europe to make it attractive that researchers and scientists come back to Europe. And so therefore the intellectual property plays a key role to be attractive as a area where you can really have benefit.
Okay, Christian.
No, I mean, yes, it is important with innovation, but no, patents are an obstacle to innovation. And we're talking about products and patents as if they were sort of the same thing. It's not at all. I mean, a mobile phone like this is covered by tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of patents. And yes, they are. The problem is that each and every one of these patents can create a multi-million euro lawsuit. So patents breed uncertainty. They create business risk.
But they not also give a sense of certainty, a sense of stability, even if you never action it in court.
If they give that sense, it's to people who do not understand how the patent system works in practice. Because if you're a small entity, a non-practicing entity, a single inventor, whatever...
Is it not like a speed limit on the motorway? Of course people break the speed limit, but most people stay within a reasonable margin of it. It's that reasonable margin of risk that allows us to operate reasonably effective motorways.
Patents are artificially created monopolies.
So are speed limits.
But there are differences. I believe that monopolies are bad. I believe that some speed limits are good. But okay, they're artificially created, but I think they're quite different. But monopolies are bad, and the fact that I mean, a company that creates a product is exposed to the risk of patent litigation from anybody. It doesn't even have to be justified. It's just so terribly expensive.
Let me bring Oswald in this first, then Paul.
Your earlier question, how do you make money from a patent?
Yeah.
Well, that's very easy. You become a patent lawyer because they are making lots of money. The people actually producing things, actually innovating, inventing things, they are the losers. The lawyers are the winners.
Okay, do you have a declaration that you're a patent lawyer first, Oswald?
I mean, it's probably a very good profession to be a patent lawyer, but the guys who make the really big money are those who do the good inventions and know how to handle it. Please do not forget that in most of the cases, you are not the owner of the monopoly. You have competitors, and in most of the cases, you are third party to a patent. So it's in your interest to have a patent system which is a quality patent system. And again, I have to contradict you, Christian. We have very, very, very few oppositions on our patents because we insist on quality. And the example which you have given is the example of the smartphone. You are absolutely right. In the US, a Google lawyer has said that a smartphone has something like 200,000 patents in it. We have made the calculation at the European Patent Office. It has less than 2,500 in Europe. So there are limits to patenting. I absolutely agree with you. And in Europe, I think we have found the right balance between what should be patented and what should not be patented. And in most of the attacks which we suffer with the European Patent Office or with the overall policy on patenting in Europe is because people simply do not make the difference between the US patent system and the European patent system. And the differences are fundamental, believe me.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about transatlantic competition. And we've got TTIP all over this place. For our listeners, the TTIP is parliamentary language for the Transatlantic Trade Agreement, which Europe's negotiating with the United States currently. And a key part of this is the intellectual property. This is, the agriculture and all these other things are probably going to get killed off in the later stages. But the intellectual property is the bit the Americans are seriously interested in. Are we going to expose our universities, our entrepreneurs to even greater risk by allowing the Americans into the market unfettered? Christian.
Okay, representing the Pirate Party, this parliamentary term, what we see as our number one great victory, was that we managed to kill the ACTA agreement, which contained an IP chapter that would have had very harmful consequences here in Europe. Thanks to hundreds of thousands of ordinary citizens who took to the streets, who started emailing the members of the European Parliament, we managed to stop ACTA. Now, I feel absolutely confident that we'll be able to stop TTIP in the same way, and I'm very happy about that. But it shouldn't be necessary. I mean, why do they keep attacking us with these weird acronyms, negotiated behind closed doors, and then voila, a new piece of legislation comes out that the European Parliament can only say yes or no to. That's an undemocratic and stupid way of making laws.
Yeah, what Christian's referring to is the fact that some parliamentarians mostly are excluded from this negotiation, but lobby groups and businesses are included by the European Commission. So if you have a nice big fat checkbook, you can get in the door, and if you have a 50,000 majority, you're staying outside. Paul's shaking his head.
No, the truth is that, of course, we have a lot of debate about the future in trade negotiations. And it's true, like Christian said, we have a lot of problems with the United States because the world is growing pretty quick and therefore the problems are growing. And I think we need a legal framework from both sides, how we act if we have a conflict. And so the law enforcement problems are clearly on the table, and we need solutions for this. And I think it's very good to sit together and negotiate and to get an understanding for both sides of the problems and to present solutions. We have nothing if we just battle and if we make problems and our companies get serious problems on the one hour. We don't need a trade war. And to stop these ideas of trade war, I think it's better to sit together and to negotiate in a transparent way. And I never have a problem if I want to speak.
America's not terribly big in transparency right now.
I think it's no problem at all to speak with the United States. All our committees which are involved are regularly with our friends in the Senate and in the House. We have open debates. They come to us, we come to them. And of course, there are a lot of brainstorming around which not have to be every day in the public. But if it comes to a written form, an official, of course we get it in the Parliament immediately. We had today an exchange of views in the Committee of Industry where we debated what's going on, and it's very clear that at the end the European Parliament has a say, and we have red lines. We have red lines where we definitely would say no to TTIP if these red lines are broken. So Parliament is very strong. We have shown it with ACTA. We have shown it with SWIFT and other areas. European Parliament is very careful, and I like this debate in Parliament because it's a bottom-up debate. We have not a strong man who tells us what to do. Here we are really a basic democratic organization which helps our citizens to be heard.
Okay. Ivona writes on Facebook that maybe our content is not scientist-friendly enough. Nikolai, you got a question?
Yeah, I've got a question actually for Mr. Engström. You said in one article that I have read that maybe patents should be abolished. So maybe patent system as a whole has a negative effect on society, and you propose that maybe there can be some more or better legislative instruments in regulating the patents. Maybe you can explain maybe something more about it. You were talking about some things like the linkage or something.
Yes. You're absolutely right. To abolish the patent system would be the number one fantastic thing that we could do to promote innovation and economic growth and jobs in Europe. I mean, it is the most fantastic opportunity we have. But there is one area where you cannot simply abolish patents and do nothing more, and that's pharmaceutical patents. But with pharmaceutical patents, I mean, that is one of the most problematic areas because it's killing hundreds of thousands of people in third world countries the way we have the patents. So delinkage is the term for if we were to fund the research, the pharmaceutical research, with public money, and then let the results completely free, then any generics manufacturers
so open source would be pharmaceuticals.
Exactly, open source pharmaceuticals. It would save lives, it would save money, it would be a fantastic idea.
But we'd have to close the European Research Council. Massimo, open source.
That would be bad.
Everything free of charge.
Well, open access, if we want to mention open access,
Okay.
that's an obligation now under any project of Horizon 2020, which goes in the direction of opening, making public, making available. So it's certainly a step which is very good, accepted by the scientific community, and compulsory from now on.
Okay, I want you to think about this question. I'll come back to it in just a moment. What kind of inventions, is from Dorothy on Facebook, what kind of inventions are most needed for Europe nowadays? You can think about that for a second. Let's continue just to talk about our brain drain. Why do so many of our great scientists go to the States and leave Europe? I was in Italy last week in Bologna. Marconi came from there. There would be no internet. And Tesla as well from Croatia. We were talking about Nicola earlier. Tesla, the electric car is based on principles from over 100 years ago. He went to the States even 100 years ago because he didn't get anywhere in Europe. Why the brain drain? Paul?
I think it's very clear. First of all, it's a very open society. So if searchers come there, they are equipped immediately with the right assistance. The universities, the companies work very closely together, and you can write your personal success story.
Okay.
So if you publish, it's easier to publish in United States. Of course, the financing of the research projects it's much easier and quicker. So it's very attractive to be in nice California. So why not we make competition out of Greece or Malta, huh?
What do you think, Oswald? You want to go to Greece?
Yeah, I think Paul is absolutely right. We have a couple of things in Europe which definitely have to be improved if we want to create the right environment for scientists to stay in Europe. Let's take the debate which we have about biotechnology. If we continue with that debate in the way we have it now, we might oblige the industry in biotechnology to leave Europe. And biotechnology is definitely one of the areas for the future. So we have to create an environment which helps scientists to do their job. And this is much broader than what we might think about at first sight. I think one of the biggest problems which we have in Europe is the venture capital situation. We don't have a culture of failing. So we don't have the whole situation where...
We have the cash, but not the attitude.
We don't have the attitude, and I also think that with the whole debate, which is an important debate about reorganizing the banking world, some of these decisions might have gone beyond the target and prevent now venture capitalists from doing their job, which is really to get risk money into ideas and to have a better cooperation. Also, Paul has mentioned it, to have a better cooperation between the private sector and the public sector, between university researchers and companies. And this is now coming in Europe, but we are far behind the situation which one had in the US already 20, 30 years ago.
Does our language limitation, the multitude of languages, hinder in this respect?
I mean, of course, if you have one language in one market, it makes things easier. But on the other hand, I think our multicultural environment in Europe has more advantages than disadvantages. So that's not the point.
Paul, what do you expect for the future? Do you see America limiting itself because pretty much it's a mature market, even in terms of research, and that we have so much untapped resources, particularly in the east of Europe, which we can mature?
You know, in the Science Committee of European Parliament, we set 4 priorities. First priority is that the world population will grow from 7 billion to 10 billion people. So what does it mean for mobility? How can we create mobility for 10 billion people in this world? That's one of the most important questions. Second one is resources for 10 billion people. Food, feed, water, raw materials, a lot of questions. How can we work together in this world to benefit from a fair sharing of these products? Third one is e-government security and social networks. So which framework do we need for this new communication? Where is privacy? Where is transparency? How can we achieve a technology which gives you the security that privacy is given in areas where you definitely need it? And the fourth problem, or the fourth target is perfect life. So what can we do to get not ill. So what can we do to prevent people in getting ill? It would drop the social costs a lot. It would help us to live longer, and education will play a very important role in this. So the European Institute of Technology, I think the most important thing is to educate young people from the kindergarten to university with the best and newest available knowledge.
Okay, before we got a couple of minutes left, let me go back to this question. So what kind of inventions are the most needed for Europe? One word answers, let's go around the table. Christian, what do we need?
Let's focus on what we have instead. What is the invention, the most fantastic invention that has come along in our lifetime?
Okay.
Well, it's obviously the internet. And the internet was built completely on open source, on sharing, on open access ideas.
Digital agenda. Okay, Massimo?
I think there is no big discoveries in the history of science that was predicted in advance. So we cannot reply to this question. We should nurture the researchers. We should give them the weapons and the means to pursue the research. But we cannot say now what will be necessary or what will be discovered in 10 or 20 years' time.
Okay.
The physicist who invented the laser 50 or 60 years ago, he said, I have invented something, the laser. I don't know what to do with that.
They said this about Facebook as well. They had no idea what was going to come next.
So it's really the kingdom of unpredictable.
Okay, Paul.
I think the most important question would be to get out of fossil energy, using fossil energy, and coming to renewable energies.
You work on the hydrogen section as well,
of course, and e-mobility and a lot of other activities. I think it's very important to keep the fossil energy for the next generation, because we can use it for all chemical production and whatever, and it's really not acceptable to just to burn it. And today we are very rude in this and just burning fossil energy. I think renewable.
So we need a polite energy policy.
Yeah.
Oswald, what do you want to see?
I definitely think it will come in the area of health, using biotechnology, using the progress which has been made on the genetic part, and we will come to an individualized medicine, and I think this is what is most needed.
So tailored medicines. Okay, Nicola, what kind of invention do you want to see?
I should agree with Mr. Engström. I think there should be a lot of progress in enhancing internet and mobile networks for the future.
Okay. So our discussion today has been pretty wide-ranging. Christian, thank you for opposing pretty much everything to do with patents. But the most important contribution from Christian today was on open access to information. We don't know where we're going to go next. Everything is on the table. The surprise is always just around the corner. And this has been the history of Europe. Everything that's come out of Europe, which was sent overseas, our great traditions, have been based on solid education, a democracy of sorts over generations, and the capacity to finance. The Venetians had to find a way to export their goods as well. And the framework that Europe is setting itself at the moment, we're dealing with Horizon 2020. It's our venture capital fund, but do we have the risk attitude which is necessary to advance Europe? Do we need to be more American? I know, Paul, some of the parliamentarians have been looking at how to restructure companies recently as well, the bankruptcy laws, how do we allow people to remain solvent with potentially viable companies. And we're becoming more Americanized. Do we have a more mature market emerging in Europe as well to compete with an almost saturated intellectual market in America? And China itself today finds itself struggling with huge debt and a subprime crisis which nobody would have expected 5 years ago. Does Europe rise above the Eastern economies which seem so strong for so long? Did the crisis prepare us for better liquidity? As Oswald was saying, that we've gone too far, we're going to go back and have the structure in place with that as well. So let me thank our guests today. Christian Engström, Swedish MEP with the Greens and the Pirate Party, always a pleasure, sir. Paul Rubig, Austrian MEP with the European People's Party, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Massimo Godino, Head of the Press and Communications Unit at the European Research Council. He's the money bags. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks.
Also.
Thanks.
Oswald Schroeder, Principal Director of Communications and spokesperson for the European Patent Office. If you have a good idea, send it to this man's office. He'll make sure that somebody protects your good idea when you start to make cash from it. And thank our students today also, Paweł Malinowski from Poland, Gotti Jupas from France, and Nikolaj Puharic from Zagreb in Croatia. Thank you for your time today, for listening to us. If you have a good idea, don't put it on the back of an envelope and file it in the drawer. Go do something with it. If you need the cash, Europe has the cash. Find a way to do it. And if you're in Eastern Europe, don't think that you're second best. The cash is there to do it. Find the partners. Make sure that we have the linkage across Europe. I think that's the key thing today. Information works. Information is cash. And as Henry Kissinger might have said, information is power. Gentlemen, thank you for your time today.